It's so important that we understand how our nation was not just founded, what the ideas and the philosophies that undergird it, and the philosophers who were involved in it. I'll bet most Americans know more, at least generally, conceptually, about Marxism and communism than they know about John Locke. John Locke, or Montesquieu, and we'll get to him in a future program. Montesquieu, all these great Enlightenment thinkers. But you know who were obsessed with these Enlightenment thinkers? Your founders. The Enlightenment, Judeo Christian values, I've talked about this many times, fused together to create the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We live in the greatest nation on the face of the earth, and it's being torn down and attacked from within with the help from governments and enemies overseas. AOC, Bernie Sanders, Tlaib, Omar, Mamdani, they're the most radical of the bunch, but the entire Democrat Party enterprise exists to destroy the foundational structure of this nation. They never talk about the values, the principles, the belief systems, and they do that for a reason. And they're always talking about what? Think about this. Economics. Not smart economics, not economics in a right way, in a reasoned way, but they're always talking like Marxists about redistribution of wealth, about getting the successful people, about taxes on the rich and so forth and so on. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's not what this country's about. That's not about the foundational principles of this country. What is this country about? And why is it about certain things? And why do men go to war, a revolutionary war, to create what we now benefit from? So let's get started. We're going to spend the entire year on this and beyond if you keep watching. John Locke, the Enlightenment. Who is John Locke? Why is he important? The most important philosopher during the Revolutionary period. He wrote a book called The Second Treatise on Government. Probably the most important book other than the Bible, relied on not exclusively, but significantly, by the people who founded this nation. The basis for the Declaration of Independence. He was an English philosopher, he was a physician, and he was more than that. He's one of the leading lights of the Enlightenment. What was the Enlightenment? The Enlightenment was a period of philosophical birth about humanity and the individual, rights and liberties, reason, private property. Developed an entire philosophy, thinking process that you and I, we constitutional conservatives today share, and I believe most Americans, if it's explained. What I'm going to explain to you in the next 30, 40 minutes is not taught in elementary schools and middle schools or high schools. It's not taught in colleges and universities, most of them, unless you seek it out in a particular course and so forth. What is taught? One hate America course after another. One hostile ideology to the American system after another. And so I want to use this platform, you, Mr. and Mrs. America, to spread the word of Americanism, which is the most humane culture, society, system on the face of the earth ever developed and established by a group of human beings. That is what we're celebrating, 250th anniversary. John Locke wrote about natural rights. Natural rights. What are natural rights? So we're going to summarize these things, and I hope it piques your interest to dig further. Life, liberty, property. Now, this word property has been abused by the left, by the Marxists, communists. Property rights. What is that? What do you do most days? What do you do most days? You work. Some of you are involved in work that's more physical than intellectual. Some of you are involved in more work that's intellectual than physical, but you're involved in both. You have a limited time on this earth. Your labor, whether it's intellectual or physical, whether it's brain power or muscle power, belongs to you. Your labor is your manifestation of your existence, of your life. So you spend a big chunk of your life on labor. Now, Marx would say, that's right, and he'd go into his thing, and we'll get into that another day. But what Locke and the Enlightenment philosophers would say, that belongs to you. So whatever you manifest through your labor belongs to you. Your property rights, physical property rights, they are a right that belongs to you. A God-given right that belongs to you because it's an extension of your existence, your limited time on earth, that you've applied your labor to. So when you're successful and you buy a home, that home belongs to you. That's your property right. And nobody should be able to take it, confiscate it for somebody else, redistribute it. So we start at that baseline. Yes, we have taxes and so forth and so on in order to do what? To keep the community together, to support the society, but not as an economic ideology to redistribute wealth from your labor, your limited time on earth, to somebody else. To somebody else. That's why property rights are so important. And Madison wrote a very famous treatise on property rights, and he said property rights go beyond physical property, land and buildings and so forth. And he writes extensively about the proposition that I'm presenting to you. Property rights include your property right in your opinion, your property right in your thought process, your property right in so many respects. If the government doesn't respect your physical property rights, it doesn't respect any of your property rights, because again, your physical property rights spring from your life, your labor, your existence. That's why property rights are so important, and that's why the Marxists and the Islamists keep attacking it, believe they have the right to confiscate it, and to do with your property rights what they wish. To control your property rights is to control you as an individual. It's to control your labor. It's to control your thought processes. That's why they hate private property rights, individual private property rights. Natural rights, life, liberty, property. Now, what do we mean by life and liberty? We mean, as Alexis de Tocqueville would write sometime later in Democracy in America, his 2 volumes, there's a circle around you as an individual of liberty, of sovereignty, that should never be molested by government or anybody else. Your sovereignty, your liberty, life, liberty, and property. This is derived from what? Natural law. Natural law, the natural state of things. The natural state of things that exists because your Creator created them. God, the divine, created them just as He created you. You're a creature of God. Everything around you, nature is a creation of God. So this governs individuals, leading to individuals voluntarily, if they choose, coming into a social compact. Now, what's a social compact? Well, we can live on our own. You know, I can go to Alaska, live on my own, do this, do that. But most people don't do that, do they? Most people are communal in the sense that they live with other people, they rely on other people for other things and support and all that sort of thing. We call that a society. A society. Individuals voluntarily come into a society. Locke called that a social contract or a social compact. You voluntarily enter into this. And so how do you have a governing system when you have this society? Locke and others, but Locke in particular, talks about you have a governing system that is very limited, that its purpose is to attend to, nurture, defend, and promote the society of individuals, sovereign individuals in a sovereign society, the people. And how do you form such a government? By the consent of the people who participate and voluntarily join this society. Hence the consent of the governed. Locke said no government is legitimate unless it has the consent of the governed. See, this turns communism, Islamism, upside down. You exist for the cause. You exist for the government. You exist for the leaders. They believe they have some kind of divine will, in the case of Islamism, and they rule simply by power. In the case of Marxism, they claim to do so in the name of the people, but the people have absolutely nothing to do with it. No say, no consent. So the consent of the governed in a limited government that has as its purpose to protect your natural, God-given individual rights, and to have a civil society so that when people interact, they aren't violating the God-given natural rights of another person. Hence you have rules. Hence you have laws. And those rules and laws, as explained in our Declaration of Independence, need to be equally applied in the same circumstances. Because God creates individuals. He doesn't create races of individuals. He creates individuals, individual free will. Now, this requires a government that is established by the consent of the people. No other government is legitimate. Individual rights spring from natural rights. Those rights, again, life, liberty, and property. And they are unalienable. That is, if they come from God, and you're God's creature, and there is this circle of liberty that nobody is free to penetrate, not any collection of individuals, government, not any groups, not any other individual. Those are unalienable rights given to you by God. They are divine rights. The individual is sovereign. We talked about that. Society is the voluntary coming together of sovereign individuals. Society is a people, is a sovereignty. It is a collection. And really, in the West, and especially the United States, it's the only place where this is recognized. Folks, if you enjoyed this clip and you want to watch the entire episode, I'm telling you, you're going to love it. You can go to YouTube and subscribe, or go to Rumble and follow. And by the way, tell your friends and family too. I'll see you then.